Hi, everybody, and welcome to Exegetically Speaking, a podcast of the friends and faculty of Wheaton College, Wheaton, Illinois. And this year, in our second season, we're doing something different. We're partnering with the Lanier Theological Library in Houston, Texas. My name is David Capes, and I am the Senior Research Fellow at the Lanier Library and former Dean in the School of Biblical Theological Studies at Wheaton College. Our purpose in these podcasts is pretty simple. We want to promote the study of biblical languages, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, so we can read the Bible more faithfully, study it more fully, not just read it and study it, but also to live it. Joining me today is Dr. David Baer, who is a professor of Old Testament and biblical languages at the Biblical Seminary of Colombia. Dr. Baer, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, David.
Now, you are not actually in Colombia at this moment because of COVID, but you are at your northern home, I guess, right now, your other place.
That's correct. I spend some time in Connecticut, my wife and I do, and I'm speaking with you today from my office in Connecticut.
And you've been teaching your students in Colombia over the internet because of COVID these days.
We've had to discover the marvels and the limitations of Zoom, but we've had a wonderful semester working from a distance. And they, of course, are scattered all over Colombia, so I'm not the only one who's remote in that equation.
Now, you went to Wheaton College and graduated with a degree in anthropology, I think it was. Was that right?
That's correct, David. I did.
And then from there, Gordon College, and then from there to, was it Cambridge University?
That's right. Yeah, I was fortunate to do a Master of Divinity at Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary a long time ago, and then to do a doctorate in Old Testament at Cambridge University.
Now, how did you get started reading biblical languages?
I fell in love with Greek at Wheaton College, as a matter of fact. The late and to some degree legendary Jerry Hawthorne taught me Greek. Yeah. And I discovered not only the Greek language and the joys and the challenges of it, but I found myself in the hands, so to speak, of a pastor scholar for the first time in my life. And Jerry mentored so many of us on into the language and on into life.
And now you're teaching Greek or Hebrew or both, or which?
Yeah, sometimes both. At the moment, I'm teaching Hebrew. Our seminary in Colombia in South America is really becoming the go-to place for biblical languages for people whose first language is Spanish. And we're learning how to do that remotely through this COVID crisis, and it's opening up doors of opportunity to us that we would not have imagined.
Yeah. And that's the thing about this crisis. People are beginning to think, how can I leverage this and for good opportunities in the future?
That's right.
Now, we're going to talk about Isaiah here, and you shared with me a passage earlier that I had not noticed before, at least the way it comes across, is Isaiah 57, verse 15. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, this comes late in the book of Isaiah, of course, the 57th chapter out of 66. And all along, the book of Isaiah has very audacious things to say about the Lord. But one of the most persistent things is that he's the one who is high and lifted up. In fact, the language for that, Ram V'Nisa, becomes in Isaiah an actual given name for the Lord. He is the Ram V'Nisa. And then we come to this 15th chapter of chapter 57, and the text says something so outlandish to conventional religion that the translator who's trying to render this in Greek simply can't have it and has to find a way out of it. And in fact, he does.
So let's read it for us in English, chapter 57 of Isaiah, verse 15. And then tell us what goes on behind the scenes with these translators at some point.
Yeah, 57:15 in the English that is generated by the Hebrew text, which I'll be reading from the English Standard Version just for the sake of convenience, says, "For thus says the one who is high and lifted up, who inhabits eternity, whose name is holy." There's nothing new there. The book of Isaiah has been saying those things about the Lord all along. But then it moves on to say this, "I do dwell in the high and holy place, but also with him who is of a contrite and lowly spirit." I would translate that also with the crushed and lowly of spirit, to revive the spirit of the lowly and to revive the heart of the crushed. So we have this picture of Yahweh, the high and holy one, simultaneously living down here with those who are the lowliest and, in fact, the shattered.
Now, some people will say, well, this is prophecy. Is this prophetic of Jesus and the coming of Jesus, you think? Or is it used that way?
That's an interesting question. I think it's not prophetic in any direct way, but I think it does show a kind of incarnational dynamic where to be high is not to be remote. It is at the same time to be able to live with those of us who are down here and crushed. But the Septuagint translator, so convinced of the Lord's exalted nature, cannot allow that to stand. And so, if I may, David,
So
I'll read what he makes of this passage.
Absolutely, yeah. What do they make of it?
So he says, "This is what the Lord says, the Most High, who dwells forever in lofty places. High among the holy ones is his name." He actually adds that extra clause of exaltation. There's nothing in the Hebrew that generates that. But then he goes on to say, "Holy among the holy ones is his name, the Lord Most High, who rests among the holy ones." And this is what he does. He doesn't come down to live with the crushed. He gives patience to the faint-hearted and gives life to those who are broken of heart.
Wow.
So
Wow.
what in the Hebrew text is God coming to dwell with us? It's the word shakan. It gives us Shekinah, the word you know well from Jewish tradition. It moves from that to a God who stays high, but in a kind of divine charity, hands out patience to those who need it and strength to those who are weak, but he doesn't come down to live with them.
Wow. Quite a difference. Quite a difference. And the Hebrew writer, he understood the transcendence of God, the high and lifted up part, but also that divine immanence, that closeness and the dwelling here.
That's right. And so the religion, if that's the right word, of the translator is less plastic than that, less multidimensional than that, more rigid than that. And he will only have Yahweh up high, and that's all, not where we live. And interestingly, he's not the only one, because the Targum Jonathan here in this case says something very similar. He also, independently of the Septuagint translator who's working the Hebrew into the Greek, Targumist also resists the same Hebraic statement. And he comes up with something that generates English like this: "For thus says the high and lifted up one who dwells in the heavens, whose name is holy. He dwells on high, and his Shekinah is holy. He has commanded to deliver the brokenhearted and the humble of spirit, to establish the spirit of the downtrodden, and to help the brokenhearted." But there in the Targum, as in Septuagint, the Lord stays where he is.
He stays high and lifted up and just sends a little charity down the way.
That's right, and one should not diminish that too much.
No.
Obviously, the giving of strength to those of us who need it is an important divine function. But it's a radically different description of Ram V'Nisa, the High and Holy One, than the Hebrew text has waiting for us to discover.
Who says, "I am with those who are crushed and humble."
Yeah,
I love that.
I dwell with them.
Yeah, I love that translation. Dr. Baer, thanks for being with us today on Exegetically Speaking.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks also to Silvio Vasquez, Rebecca Larson, and Krista Sanchez for helping us edit and produce the podcast. Thanks to Phil Kagi for our music. If you want to study biblical languages, then the best place you can do that, Greek or Hebrew, doesn't matter, is Wheaton College. They have a great program, and you can go to that website, www.wheaton.edu. Look for modern and classical languages to get started today. If you have questions about this podcast, we'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to share it with a friend, please do so. We're on all the right platforms. Contact us at exegetically.speaking@wheaton.edu. Thanks for listening.